Hello, my name is Junade Ali. I'm the lead developer at Creare. We're one of the largest digital marketing agencies for SMEs, and I joined the company about 6 months ago, and the type of technology we deal with is software like stuff which is largely built on PHP. We have lots of front-end developers who work with things like WordPress. So really, these are the type of technologies which are attacked very frequently. And we haven't previously sought to develop a strategy on how we can protect them. So for our thousands of clients who host with us, we do have server-side security, so we have things like throttling to make sure a particular client can't take up an entire server. We IP whitelist root logins, things like that, public and private key encryption, but we've never actually taken any steps at a web application level. So I'm just going to talk through what we've done on that front. I'm just curious, how many of you have heard of the hack that happened to Ashley Madison? Yeah. I'm just curious, how many of you now looked through the data and found you had an identical twin not living too far away from you? Yeah, so basically when I started off, that was our security infrastructure. But one of the quite large attacks we had, which hit home, is we had, a few weeks ago, we relaunched our brand on the rooftop of Google's headquarters, and we faced quite a large-scale attack. And because we had these strategies in place, no one even noticed it. Most of the people in our company don't know we had an attack. So I suppose that's one of the ways we could measure success, in the fact no one actually realized we were under attack. So how did we manage to stop our totally legit-looking hacker from attacking us? So before I start going into the hosting stuff, I want to talk a little bit about our development standards. So the first thing we had to do is, as I work quite closely with a lot of front-end developers, we had to implement some simple processes they could follow in order to mitigate large-scale attacks. So basic things on WordPress, like there's a tool called WP Scan. It's a command line utility, really easy to use. It just tells you if you're using any vulnerable plugins. You can just go through, have a small training session with your developers to go through things like the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities. Also, back-end developers, if they don't use proper hashing, you beat them pretty hard. And if they're setting up SSL, you make sure they run it through SSL Labs standards. So just go to the SSL Labs website, run a test, it'll give you a grade. And also, we run it site-wide, not just because of the security benefits, but also now Google consider that as quite a large ranking factor. So as you can see, we can just tell one of our developers before they install a plugin, check it on the vulnerability database. If they're a really front-end developer, have very little back-end experience, you can just give them that simple instruction and they'll hopefully mitigate some attacks. So I now want to turn to our hosting infrastructure, because obviously we've had sites built pre these standards, and we can't go through thousands of websites and try and fix them up. So the first thing we did is we realized we need something that sits in front of our web applications so we don't have to fix up all the code, and we can have a way of mitigating these thousands of attacks. So we look towards a web application firewall. In our case, we were able just to install mod security on top of Apache, because most of our servers are just basic LAMP stacks. We've also got some Nginx servers. We use Naxi. There are commercial tools also available. They're really easy tools to use. You can choose what rule set you want. I'd highly recommend you look into one. So that's our first layer, having a web application firewall. Next thing, mitigating brute force attacks. This is not a real brute force attack, but this is one. There we are. In order to mitigate a brute force attack, what we did was we set up, basically just fail to ban. We go look at our log files. If there were access post requests to login endpoints, we just blocked an IP, and that way we didn't have to, again, deal with the source code of thousands of websites. So that's our second layer. The other thing we started to do is lots of people, when they're starting off websites, seem to think it's a good idea to host their websites with the same people who sold them a domain name. Shouldn't do that. So we migrated everything over to special PAS hosting or things which are, or hosts which are more specialized in dealing with particular technologies. So that's our hosting level. The next thing I'm going to move on to is slightly controversial, but one of the things we started doing early on is we became a Cloudflare optimized partner, and this was actually quite beneficial for us because when a few weeks ago we had, for example, a DDoS attack, we wouldn't have had the technology in-house to mitigate it. We just routed it through Cloudflare. In less than half an hour, the attack was mitigated. If we hadn't had that partnership agreement, we wouldn't be able to do that. So then now we're looking forward and we're going and negotiating other strategic partnership deals with similar security companies. I'm sure you've all heard of Cloudflare, but if you haven't, it basically, there's a range of platforms you can choose. It really depends what you're after. Because we were able to use the bulk of our, of how many clients we've got, we were able to get, negotiate up various free features for our clients. And it also does some things like the web application firewall, and it's quite good, so we can mitigate some pretty decent attacks. This is more targeted to people who are interested in digital marketing, but it was quite interesting when we looked at what happened when, to our rankings, our sites, when we started implementing these tactics. So the first kind of spike you notice, that's one of our large online retailers. We mitigated quite a large well, essentially we mitigated quite a large attack, and then they later routed around it. Afterwards, we went through and then we mitigated that attack at a server-side level, because essentially at the first point we mitigated at a Cloudflare level, but they were routed around the DNS straight to a server, so then we just went ahead and added in a level of security on the server itself. And we noticed when I sat down with one of our SEO account managers, they noticed the level of security we put on the site, whether it was universal SSL across the site or whether it was blocking bad bots in order to speed up the site, it had a significant performance advantage. So I suppose that's the outcome we've had. Right? That's all.